This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so regular seated board members, I'll call your name. Please let me know if you're still on. Angie DeSanto,
I am.
Garth Bean,
Yes, here.
John Kopak.
Here.
Paul Varga,
Here.
Jesse Burnham.
Jesse Burnham here.
Okay, we got the full house, myself, Judy Austin, chair. Alternates, Esther Jagosinski, Hugh McKenzie,
Yeah, I'm here, and I had joined at 7:20 previously.
thank you.
Welcome.
Christina Davis,
Present.
thank you. Okay, so we got everybody here. Okay, Jane, you gotta, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, I don't even need that. I misspoke. It's a special ed teacher that left and was not replaced, not a special ed para educator, just to clarify. Thank you.
Jane, just as a question, how many special ed teachers do we have?
Ooh, I don't know that answer off the top of my head. I'm not sure if Craig can answer that question.
Craig, are you here?
He was here before. Did he get back in?
Yes, he is. He's there with waving his hand.
Go ahead,
5.
Craig.
5 is the answer.
It's hard to scroll through everybody to find one person. Thank you. So we have currently 5. Thank you. Jeff Silversmith,
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of items to get through and I'll keep it under my 3 minutes. While not currently having a child or student in Ashford School, I fully appreciate the need for a robust and solid education and support the request for reestablishing the requested funding, at least at the 5.2 level, if not higher. I've heard 7 point something also tossed out, 7.4 tossed out there also. Another item is I fully appreciate and support the comments of Chuck Funk regarding the lack of information provided regarding the areas of needed increase to the budget. It's hard to support something when no one has explained to you the reasons why increases are needed in the different areas amongst the town. It's the responsibility of the Board of Finance to share this information to both the informed and the uninformed at a hearing. The time for that has not been taken.
I've got it on here, Derek.
To inform those people attending this hearing and taking the time to do so. I can read numbers as presented in any budget package. What I do not know is where the increases take place and why. And traditionally, a summary of major changes have been offered. And even when you go to newspaper articles and looking at other towns' budget packages, whether they've been approved or unapproved or moving forward, even in there was explanations as to where the changes were taking place and why. And we have not received that from the Board of Finance. Thank you for your time.
thank you. Carolyn Trotta,
Good evening. Carolyn Trotta. I live on Lakeside Drive. I have one child currently enrolled in Ashford. I removed my 6th grader a month ago. I wanted to make some suggestions for the budget. I don't believe any paras should be cut. If anything, each teacher should have one to help with the issues in the classroom. I would first start off by cutting the increase in the superintendent's salary. I would support foregoing replacing Troy Hopkins for a year to see how that goes. I would also look at extras that are offered in the school. Is Spanish required? And I'm not doing this in any order or anything. I'm just looking at the things that are extra. Is PE required by the state, by the government? Looking at these different extras, it's time, to cut. Nobody ever wants to do that, but we have to be real. Elections have consequences. And that's why we are where we are at the federal level. The town of Ashford went for Biden, and inflation is up across the board, and it's hurting everybody. And we have to be reasonable, what people can afford. I would also inquire as to why there are no more parent volunteers. I volunteered in the school for years. And after COVID, COVID, it's still with us and we have to learn to live with it. But I think the fact that the parents are no longer allowed in the school, when you know that somebody's mom is in the classroom, you're less likely to misbehave, causing issues in the classroom, the teacher to teach kids. And I would like that to be addressed as well, to allow parents back into the school. I think we can do that safely, because if you look at the projected, currently as of January, there were 391 students enrolled in our school, and next year it's projected to be 384. So it's going down. So those would be my recommendations, but you can't cut the paras because they're needed. They're need just to have extra bodies in a classroom, and what they provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Jane, I have a question for you. Maybe you can clarify for people so they have a perspective of employees or teachers. How many teachers do you actually have currently?
Again, I'm gonna ask Craig to answer to make sure it's accurate.
I
Craig,
believe
are
it's
you there?
four. I believe it's according to what you guys sent us. Hang on.
Craig, go ahead.
44.45. 44.45.
And how many paras do you have?
23 budgeted right now, 22, and we're working on a long-term sub for one.
So is it safe to say it's probably a ratio of 5.5 to 1? Because we have 381 students.
Well, first of all, you have to remember many special education paras work one-on-one with a student. So you can't just look at the special ed paras and divide it by the total school population. There are 8 general education paras who work outside of special ed. The special ed staffing is based on children's individual educational plan, their IEPs. Those are state mandated that we fully implement them. So there are only 8 general education paras. The remainder of those paras are special education.
Thank you, Jane, for clarifying. Mary Calarisi.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live on Mansfield Road, and I just wanted to say that there's no doubt that that the committee has worked hard on bringing us all together to share our ideas here. And just to point out that the budget's available right online if anyone needs to see it. For some reason, it sounded like it was a little bit hidden there, and it's quite apparent. But I want to say thank you to the committee for your work and for your concern of the citizens of Ashford. This, is a volunteer job, and we appreciate the work that you do. And also say that there's no doubt that the quality of our teachers in our school is a pride to the community and appreciated by everyone. I don't think that the budget in any way seeks to say that it's not, but putting passion aside, the budget is a financial process, which requires balancing the wants and needs of the community with the available resources. And our community members, who are those that fund the taxes that fund this budget, are not seeing 6% increases in their salaries across the board. And indeed, many are either unemployed or underemployed after the pandemic. And our senior population has to meet these increases on their fixed incomes. So we need our town and our schools to look for creative ways within our means to identify compromises to balance the budget with minimal increases, to consider the impact on those who can least afford to fund it, and appreciate your continued consideration and thinking about the citizens of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Elisa, oh boy.
Alyssa Tatro.
Thank you.
That's okay. Yes, my name is Alyssa Tatro. I'm a mom of 3 children, a resident in town. I live on Knowlton Hill Road. I'm also the school social worker at Ashford. And I just kind of wanted to give some insight because I know we're talking about needing as many hands on deck as possible, and that the American Academy of Pediatrics in October said that we're in a national crisis for children's mental health. But what I want to just point out, what does that look like at Ashford School? And so we have children in our school who will wait days on end, sometimes up to a week in the emergency room for a bed in a psychiatric hospital. For a partial hospitalization program. So mental health, it's a hierarchy of care, meaning when you're in the inpatient level, it's the highest level of psych services you can get. Then partial hospitalization program is the level below that. And then regular outpatient counseling, where therapists who are local or through agencies like CHR, CHC are there. So with that said, I just wanted to tell you that. So for the partial hospitalization program, I just did a referral last week for a student, and there's 38 children there waiting before him. So this child will likely not get these services that he needs in any time soon. And so then where are these children who need this high level of care? They're at school. They are at our school. And I just want to make it very clear that we need as many people on the front lines as possible to be able to help our kids get through this, because it's not, in as many parents on the line know, and teachers, it's not just one child who is affected by this. There are classrooms. These become larger issues. And I just really am hoping that we're able to sustain a budget that keeps everybody on here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else?
Judy,
Tess
I don't know
Grouse.
if you can't see
Tess
Tess Grouse,
Grouse,
but she's got her
excuse
hand
me.
up.
Excuse me, Tess
Thank-
Grouse.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. Shady Lane. I just have a question. I know that there's been a couple numbers passed around about how many teachers that have left the school this year. I just want clarification. Craig, how many teachers or staff members have left since you have been employed at Ashford School? And how many, is there a discrepancy in that number, or am I just not hearing that correctly?
Craig?
Madam Chair, do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
We've had 4 or 5 in a school psychologist. Some of those that were referred to actually left before I arrived.
Any other questions, Tess?
Yeah, actually, I'm wondering what, again, I hear the number of, we have a high turnover rate. I'm not sure if anybody else's kids go to different schools or at the high school in Mansfield. Do we have any numbers of what a high turnover rate actually is? And is 5 or 8 considered a high turnover rate, especially during the pandemic? And I'm not sure who would answer that.
Craig, do you want to try to answer that? Are you still there?
I'd actually defer this to a Board of Ed meeting, Tess, because this is actually unrelated to the budget discussion that we're supposed to be having
I'm
tonight.
actually kind of curious, Jane, to have her answer the question.
I know I can't answer that question unprepared. I haven't had a chance to look at surrounding school districts. I don't know if Craig has had a chance to research surrounding school districts.
Craig, can you answer, please?
Sure. Turnover has been extremely high during the 2 years of COVID. The last time we hired a special ed teacher, and we have filled all of our positions, I believe there were over 200 positions just in special education. And don't forget, for each position we filled, that teacher came from somewhere else. So there's been a lot of movement during COVID throughout the state.
Thank you. Any other questions, Tess?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me scroll here. See if I got any hands up. Bear with me, I'm trying to see if there's any hands up. I have an iPhone hand up. I don't know who that is.
It's me, Judy. It's Lynn Ligori from Old Town Road.
Hi, Lynn.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I couldn't get on my computer or my iPad, but so I'm Lynn Ligori. I live on Old Town Road. We've lived here for close to 35 years, and I so appreciate the work of the teachers, the boards. I know it's a lot of time. One of my questions was, to add on to Tessa's, have we looked at surrounding towns with similar school populations and what they have for staffing within those schools? So I don't know if Eastford is the same as us, if they have similar class sizes, that sort of thing. So that was one of my questions. And then the other one was, did I hear correctly that we're now allowing parents into the classrooms right now to work? Is that true? I'm not sure if anyone can answer that, because it seems like hopefully we're on the other side of the pandemic. We're all going back to work. We're going back to work live in our offices. Parents should be back in the classroom so that they can volunteer. It would take the burden off the paras and off the teachers. And I agree with, I think Carolyn, someone made the comment that when a parent's in the classroom, people generally behave. I did a lot of volunteering. And then the other thing that I did want to mention was I did do the estimate on my tax increase, and my taxes will go up $1,300. And to the comment that was raised that we all have responsibility, with our taxes, and that at some point we have to put the brakes on. We have to start being a little more conservative, just like we are in our homes. We have oil price increases in our homes and our lights have gone up, but just being more prudent. Let the parents back in, do what we can, find some creative solutions. Thank you.
Jane, can you answer the question as to if the parents are allowed to come into the school?
So I think parent volunteers are allowed in certain cases. I'm not 100% sure when they're being used, but parent volunteers are never allowed to be a substitute for a paid employee. We can't rely.
Can somebody turn off their mic, please? Thank you.
Yeah, parent volunteers can never be used in place of paid staff. So volunteers are not It's always great. I've spent many hours volunteering in the classrooms there with my 3 children. It's a great benefit to the parents as well as the students, but that is not an allowable substitute for a paid employee.
Okay. And the other question, I don't know if that's you or Craig, but has anybody looked at other towns around us, like Lynn had asked the
So
question?
I'll let Craig weigh in after I tell you what I know. Willington is a very close comparison to us. Number of school children. Difference is they have 2 schools, which means I believe they have an extra principal, more than we have, but otherwise staffing is similar. And Craig, I don't know if you have additional data or if you want to add to what I said.
Craig, would you like to answer that?
I think it's always good to look at staffing in other towns. I think that's wise. I think there are certain areas where we're a little bit higher, but sometimes in a bigger school system, you get economies of scale. When you're trying to do everything in a smaller system, sometimes you have a duplication of efforts. But I think that it's always wise to not only look at other towns, but look at your own town and see where you can gain some savings.
Thank you. Pat Wilson, excuse me.
Wilson Phineas. Me?
Thank you. I wasn't going to attempt that.
All right. Hi there. Good evening. And I submitted a written statement. I don't know if you got it because I just, submitted it before I got on. So I'll just read through it quickly. Good evening. I'm a resident of Ashford, 63 Squaw Hollow Road, with no children in the system, although Ashford Elementary was my elementary school many years ago. Let me say from the outset that I understand that balance is required in any budget deliberation. A town has to balance the needs of all of its residents, its roads, its buildings, and support services, and all deserve the consideration. I want to speak in support of the budget as it has been presented for action. I support the hard work that has been done. I know that it is difficult work and that people have turned themselves inside and outside to get where we are. Many of us are experiencing an unanticipated or maybe anticipated increase in our taxes because of the reevaluation, even before we consider the mill rate. Whenever there is discussion of the possibility of tax raising, people start to shudder. I get that. But a budget document is really an indication of our values and what we require, where we place our money is where we place our values. We require from each component of our budget is really based on that value system. And for me, I place the greatest value in education. I understand that there's concern about the budget recommendation, that 4.21%, there was apparently a number of reductions that have taken place, and that there may have been some faulty calculation in how the decision was made to set the budget at 421. I understand that due to unrealized insurance costs and other costs, it is really 7.64 is what the increase should be if in fact we were giving the school what it needed. I think that it's important to note several things in our deliberations. The education staff salary increase, which I've heard cited at 6%, really you have to consider that that includes administrative costs and not just teachers. Our teachers aren't getting rich here in Ashford. And I just want to point out that nearly a good part of that 6% is in administrative salaries, which I'm not saying they're not deserved. I'm just saying we could look to cuts there. I also note that the 4.21 increase includes no new teaching staff, and the same cannot be said of other parts of our budget. Now, I'm not suggesting that people aren't needed everywhere, but I'm just saying we have to look, and there are no new teaching staff here. I've also heard it said that in Ashford, our school is top heavy, that we've got too many staff, or not, if not too many staff, that there's a bad ratio between the students and the teachers, and that it appears that we have too many. But that I would point out that paraprofessionals can make or break your classroom. I think these are things that anybody who's ever taught understands. And in the kind of situation that we've had over the last couple of years, that is not where you want to make your cuts. I would also point out, as far as I can determine, many of the paraprofessionals that aren't connected to special education are actually assigned to the earliest, grades. And extra support is clearly needed there, not just because of COVID, but just in general. And if we remove those paraprofessionals or cut them, I think we're going to lose grant money that will set us backward in another area. I think we have to take account of the behavioral problems that are not serious enough to require special education, but which are serious enough to disrupt a classroom. And if you don't have adequate assistance, whether it's paraprofessionals or parents, your students are not getting what they really need. And I just think it's critically important that we remember we've got to prepare.
Pat, Pat, I have to interrupt you because you exceeded your time limit.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Well, you got my written testimony.
All right.
Don't
All
cut the paralegals and watch the budget. We've got to be able to prepare these kids to face the entire world, and they can't do it competing with towns that have more money than we do unless we put our values where our mouth is. Thank you. I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
Read the testimony. Thanks.
I have another hand up with the iPhone. I don't know who that is. Somebody want to speak with an iPhone?
I believe she already spoke.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
I knew that was you this time. Okay. Anybody else? I'm scrolling here.
John Cowries has his hand up, but not the
Oops.
official.
Thank you. John, would you like to speak?
I don't have my hand up.
John, you're muted.
John, put on your mic.
I'm all set. Sorry about that. First of all, special thanks to all the boards. I've sat on a few of them, and it's a lot of hard work. And I got to tell you, sometimes it's thankless, but nonetheless, it's necessary. And just a quick shout out to Jane. Congratulations on your chair position, Jane. I miss you. And my comments aren't in any way reflective of my feelings towards the importance of the school in town. I think it's one of the town's biggest assets. And speaking from a businessman's perspective, it's something that's worth protecting because it helps our property values and it helps draw good people into the community. But I do have to, again, speak as a businessman and say that if you look at things like test scores and student progress, equity, the ratio of students to teachers, they're all a little bit out of whack. Our scores are low compared to the school compared to the state as a whole. And quite honestly, our student population doesn't look like it's moved much in the last 5 years, Jane. It looks like it's about the same as it was when I left. So we have a 9-to-1 teacher ratio, and the state average is 12-to-1. But just based on that raw number, you could cut 10 teachers. I'm not saying cut 10 teachers, but that would get you more in balance with the rest of the state's teacher to student ratios. All I'm saying is that we've got enough teachers where our test scores should be better. We have enough teachers where some of the things that are looked at on the big screen should be putting us in the top 50%, not in the lower 50%. So if we're spending this money, I don't see necessarily the return on investment. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Calarisi.
Judy, can I respond to something that John said?
Excuse me one
This
minute.
is Jane Urban. Can I respond to something that John said?
No, not at this time. So I'm trying to get everybody that hasn't spoken yet. Time. Okay. Just give me a minute. I'm kind of just like scrolling to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Bill Folletti? You got to turn on your mic. Turn on your mic.
Sorry, having some technical difficulties here. First, I'd just like to echo what a number of people have already said here, and how appreciative I am personally and on behalf of the town for all of the work that the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed and everybody that's been involved in this has put into it. It's an asset that the town has that you can't put a value to it because it is so precious to our community. And of course, what it's all about is I know we had a large meeting assembly at the beginning of the school year, and we talked about our most precious commodity, which is our children. And while we may have a difference of opinion on what we do and how we get to what we're hoping to accomplish, the core is the love of our children and a proper education for them. There are a number of very difficult measures that have to be taken, and probably nobody's in a hotter seat than our superintendent, who has to come up with different solutions. And not all of them obviously are going to be able to make everybody happy or necessarily things that we want to hear. Again, and from a Board of Finance perspective, and I know I'm not telling any of you folks on the Board of Finance, because you hear all sides, it's an affordability issue. We've got a number of people in town that are severely hurting as a result of COVID and the economy and the nature it's in right now. I've spoken to people who are concerned about losing their homes. The protection they may have had during COVID and the federal government protection, it's no longer there. And people are worrying about paying their bills and everything. So it's a particularly sensitive issue. My personal concern, and I'll echo somewhat of what John just said, is the educational standards of our children. Now, I know a couple of people had made some inquiries, and most of the information I got is available through the State Board of Education website. But if we compare on a scholastic equivalency, and they compare each school to a 1,222 total number of schools, and we get to percentiles
on certain aspects of the job, but
right now, Mansfield, well, let me start at the top rated in our area. Region 19 E.O. Smith is rated as a 13% percentile out of all of the schools throughout the state. There are 169 out of 1,222. Mansfield School System, Board of Ed, is 26th in the state, which we can only give kudos to what they do and what they've been able to accomplish. Ashford is 63rd percentile in the state, and Wellington is just above us, or below us rather, at 64. Having done, I've Googled Greg, I've worked for him for a while, and I know his reputation through the state and educational systems that he has been associated with in the past. He has left there with a better scholastic rating for his schools than whenever he joined those various systems. So I look at what he's trying to do as a core issue that concerns many of us, and that's uplifting our students' education on, hopefully at least on a par on with the high school that we're going to be sending them to. And that involves a lot of very, very difficult decisions. We all love our teachers. We know the job they do. I pray for them every night. And that includes all of the staff of the school. But needless to say, it's a budgeting act and I mean a balancing act. And it obviously is not easy. So I know I'm probably over the 3 minutes and I'll stop here, but again, I appreciate and we recognize it's not easy decisions that you folks make, but we appreciate your efforts. And I'm available for any questions that anybody may have. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Bill. And you can go on because you're the boss, but you
Oh,
know,
I'm not the
we'll give
boss.
you a little slack. Okay. Anybody that hasn't spoken? Catherine Silversmith.
Thank you. I live on Seacar Road. We certainly raised a child and he went through Ashford School and E.O. Smith. First of all, I do want to thank the boards for their efforts. This is not an easy process. I know I've done it many times. I want to remind everybody, I know you're talking about the superintendent, who I think does a very good job, but it is the Board of Ed that is really the group that's in charge. And so I am hoping that at the end of this, if there are no more people that are interested in speaking, that Jane Urban, as the chair of the Board of Ed, will be able to respond to John Calabrese, because I'm sure that there was something she probably wanted to clarify. As far as the school, I feel very strongly that we should be supporting our school. It is an aspect of our property values. And I know that and I've again been in this position, we have a lot of people in town who struggle. You know, the board has a very difficult decision to have to weigh on this, but I want to remind you, you don't want to erode your school. Also, I think that it would have been good if, as we've done in previous public hearings about the budget, if there had been some kind of at least a brief summary, verbal summary of some of the high points in the budget proposal. Again, if you're just trying to look at it online or wherever you get a copy of it, there's a lot to go through. And some people may not have had the opportunity to do that. Plus, it's always good to have it put into the perspective of the board when it's being presented back out to the public. So I don't envy you the job you have to do. I hope you can find a good balance and that we support the groups that need to be supported. Thanks.
Just looking to see if anybody else would like to speak. Okay, Jane, we'll let you answer Mr. Calabresi's question.
Thank you.
Or
Hopefully you can hear me okay. I had to switch microphones. John, I didn't want to just say that I miss you too. I wanted to just address the test score issue. It comes up a lot. If you study much educational theory, you'll see that there's a direct correlation with the number of students who receive free and reduced lunch and their performance on standardized tests that were used to evaluate schools. So pre-pandemic, I believe 40% of Ashford school students received free or reduced lunch. I don't know what that is post-pandemic. I expect it's higher. So it is something that we are trying to address. We were able to use some of the ESSER grant, the COVID funds, that we received from the federal government to hire a math interventionist for the middle school because our math test scores are particularly low. And we are doing our best to address some of those deficiencies. We also are implementing with the COVID grant and the ESSER funds, additional after-school programs and summer school programs to provide educational support to those students who have fallen even further behind due to the pandemic school years. So I just wanted to provide those additional details. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak that hasn't spoken? Okay.
Madam Chair, Jennifer Lindsay's hand is up.
Yeah, I just saw her. Jennifer Lindsay.
Hi, thank you again. I just wanted to clarify the number of staff who have left. Again, speaking on behalf of the Board of Education. Since August, I'm just going to go through positions, but we've lost a PE teacher, a second grade teacher, another PE teacher, the reading interventionist, a science teacher, 3 special education teachers, our principal, and a school psychologist. So 8 actual teachers plus the school psychologist and our principal. Thank you.
I have a question. Jen Lindsay, you still there?
Yep.
I have a question. So when you're saying these people are leaving you've lost, are you saying that they've left for their own? What are the situations? I know that there's certain rules you can't say a lot about, but how many people actually left because of personal reasons?
According to my information, 1 person left due to personal reasons. 1 person left for family reasons other than sort of personal. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I keep losing my place here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teachers left to accept different positions in different districts. 1 person left for personal reasons, 1 person left for family reasons, and then that's not counting our principal who is leaving us also.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't the new admin problem, or what we hear chatter about. That's all. I wanted to make sure that it was for their own reasons. Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak before we move on?
Judy, Christina's hand is up.
Hang on, I'm getting back there. I figured Christina had enough when she's on the on the board, but go ahead, Christina.
I'll be super brief. I just, I love my numbers, and there was a question about how Ashford compares to other towns. So if you look at per pupil education expenditures, Ashford's per pupil education expenditure is $19,608. That's almost identical to Wellington, which is $19,590. and very similar to Mansfield, which is 19,897. So we're right in line with the towns that we join in sending to EO Smith. Compared to other small towns like Chaplin's per pupil expenditure is over 22,000. Eastford's over 20,000. Union is 19,000 and Hampton is over 22,000.
Dean?
Hi, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Dean Page. I live on Horse Hill Road. I don't have a kid in the system, but last I knew you could send a child to Woodstock Academy for $14,000 a year. So to me, that's an awful lot of money. I get that it's in line with everybody else, but I think everybody else is too high too. My father, raised a family of 3. His wife stayed at home, and I don't think he made more than $40,000 a year. And he had to feed us 365. He had to pay all the bills. So for me, it's a lot of money, and I know we have to balance things out. We have to think about the taxpayers. Just because the value of my house went up, it doesn't make me any richer. What am I supposed to do? Borrow against that equity and pay my taxes with it? No, I'm not going to do that. So just because the value of my house went up doesn't make me any richer until I sell it. So please think of that. I mean, the business that I've been in, I've never gotten a 7% raise in my life. I've been working since I was 14 years old. The business that I work for, every year we're tasked with the 6% productivity. Every year we have to deliver 6%. If we don't, the corporation decides who gets laid off. So if sales are flat, we have to cut costs 6% year over year. If we don't, somebody loses their job. So I know this is not a business. We're trying to teach our kids, and it's very important. I know when I was in school, I struggled back in the 70s. I had dyslexia. Nobody knew what it was even. So I struggled, but our classroom sizes were in the 20s, and somehow or another, we managed to make it. So I know we're probably doing better today than we did back then. We know much more about how to educate kids than we did, 30, 40 years ago. But we got to get creative, and we got to think about the taxpayer, because if you lose them, then it's all done anyway. We pay the bills. So thank you for your time. I appreciate all the work. It's a tough thing, and in the business that I'm in, I've had to let people go that I didn't want to let go. In my department, I managed 10 people, and now I'm down to 6. The work doesn't go away. I still have to deliver for the business, regardless of the size of my staff. It's the reality that we live in, unfortunately. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Judy, you're muted.
Thank you, Cheryl, for keeping me in line. Oh, Bill, I was just going to close the public hearing, but go ahead.
No, and I don't want to nitpick figures here and everything, but the last figures that I got on a per pupil cost with our students was $20,998.96.
And compared to other schools around, Bill, do you have the other?
It's on a par. It's close. I don't have the other numbers at hand. I just happen to have that number right at hand, but that's the actual last number for Ashford.
Okay. How do maybe either Jane or Craig could answer this, but how do we rate again compared to other towns around us? The student rate?
I'm sorry, do you mean like the number of students?
Yeah, how do we rate compared to the test scores for the towns around us again? I didn't write that down.
Well,
I don't have those data because I wasn't, I thought we were talking about the budget tonight, so I didn't know we were going to talk about test scores and things, so I'm not prepared to answer that.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I thought somebody mentioned it before, but that's all right.
Judy, I I mentioned it. Do you want those figures again?
Yeah, I didn't write them down. Sorry.
Again, through the State Board of Ed on their rating system. Region 19 is rated at a 13th percentile. Mansfield 26th percentile. Ashford 63rd percentile. And Wellington 64th percentile.
Thank you. Okay, if we have no other people, we will move on to close the hearing. Okay, so closing the hearing at, I don't even know what time it is. 8:45. Okay, we're moving on to new business. For the seated board, well, for the board members. A new budget, a budget adjustments and recommendations to the Board of Selectmen.
Judy, I think
this-
you have to call your meeting to order.
Yeah, point of order,
Oh,
Madam
sorry.
Chair.
Sorry. Excuse me,
Yeah.
I heard Cheryl, thank you.
Hang on. The meeting was called to order at 19:07 and it went into a public hearing. And then the public hearing was just closed. So technically the meeting was in session at 19:07.
I mean, we could
Okay,
do it
weren't there
again.
separate, I thought that there were separate agendas sent out for these, separate notices.
There was a
No.
separate public notice with the same link to make sure that people who attended the public hearing would also be able to attend the special meeting without having to leave the link, which we had a problem
That's
with
what's
anyway,
confusing.
but it doesn't really, I mean, either way, if you want to reconvene it, however you want to do it, I'm just pointing it out that the agenda had the public hearing included in it.
So when we had problems, when we had the issues and we had to shut down because of so many people, we did come back and I did do a roll call for the members. But we can call it to order, so there's no discrepancies with anybody's opinion at 8:47. Seating of board members. Please say if you're here still or not. Angie DeSanto.
I'm here.
John Kopek.
Here.
Paul Varga.
Here,
Jesse Burnham.
Jesse Burnham here.
Garth Bean.
I'm still here.
And Judith Austin, Chair. Alternates. Esther Jagosinski. Hugh McKenzie.
Here.
Christina Davis.
Present.
Okay, so moving on. For a new business, item number 4. Budget adjustments and recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. Hold on 1 minute. I think the school does an awesome job. I'm very optimistic for Mr. Kriller in the future in his plans, but for my opinion, on the 4.2 that we already agreed on, and it kind of well, Mr. Kriller came in with a 5.9. And he knew after we had bothered him with a bunch of questions and stuff, he knew it was going to be tough. After 3 votes from the last meeting, there was finally an agreement. Yeah, after 3 votes and the percentage went down, there was finally an agreement to the 4.2. my feelings in this environment, for the past 6 years, we have never, ever had a 4.2. In 16 to 17, we had a 0.40 increase. 17 to 18, we had a 0 increase. 18 to 19, we had a 1.34. 19 to 20, we had a 2.30. 20 to 21, we had a 1.7. During this time frame, even though we had these increases, the board came to us, and I was on here, and they had said that they were going to cut teachers. And they had said they were going to cut different, positions. But during that time, from 2019 to 2020, if you look on the profile of performance report for the school, at that time, there was 40 teachers, and there was 20.5 paras. Currently, we have an additional 4.5 and 2 more paras, even though we had limited increases. Now, I go back to the June audit in 2021. This was before the superintendent's time. The school had left over $174,876. We had given them over $200,000 in 2021. So then Chuck's right. We're adding an additional 337 on top of that. Plus, the school had additional grants this year of almost $500,000. Now, I know they don't go into the budget, but all these are into consideration, because every time you get a grant and you add a person, you're adding more benefits, more raises. You're taking away from the ones that are there and you're giving to others. Now, the school teachers, as far as my understanding is, there's a rating. So there's a rating for the percentage a teacher gets for the amount of time they're there. We have 18 of 25 that are at the top rate. I can't go any higher than this. And in fact, I don't even feel good about this number with the current situation. When we have a medium household income in town of a 69,704. I sat down and I tried to figure out just the necessities for that family to get by. And they might end up with $100, maybe $150 in their pocket, but they have to do car repairs, diapers, doctors, glasses. So I'll get off my rant, but as far as I'm concerned, when I got voted onto this board, one of the things I put on my card was my focus on the board is to work with the community to achieve sustainable, affordable, financial future for all residents of the community. I feel that's my obligation. Everybody has their opinion. It doesn't mean that I think anything less of Ashford School. I went to Ashford School. I went to E.O. Smith. I know how wonderful they are. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know. We'll go to the board members for their opinions and then we'll vote. Who's next?
Jane Urban and Jennifer Lindsay both have their hands up.
This is our
the
meeting.
board
We're
meeting.
done.
Judy,
This is our board meeting.
This is Paul. I'll go next if you want. Can you hear me, Judy?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So first I was going to address Mr. Funk and Mr. Silversmith, and I think a couple other people's question about where the increases were, because they were disappointed in the, I guess, in the budget book and the explanation in the beginning. I think it's fairly obvious that in the Board of Education budget, the increases are staff salaries, whether it's certified or non-certified. which for me is the problem with the Board of Education budget. We're putting money into staff and not money into actual programs or education or computers or textbooks or whatever it may be. Mr. Calabrese pointed out that the test scores and performance numbers don't seem to match up with what we're spending, and I agree with that as well. And as many of you know, my family is a family of educators. My mom actually taught in that building for 23 years. She retired from it. So I understand teachers very well. But we can't keep adding staff and adding dollars to the school budget every year, ending up with, as Judy pointed out, $174,000 extra, if you will. And then they come and say they need another 400 or whatever the number was, 7.6 something %. And kudos to Mr. Kreller and Dina for working hard on that. And I realize we may not have seen the insurance numbers we wanted or savings we wanted, but we all worked very hard, or you all worked very hard to get that number down. On the general fund budget side, again, most of it is payroll. If you look at the numbers, a lot of it is contractual requirements. The fire department submitted a budget with an addition of 6 hours of staffing for emergency services. The recreation department submitted a budget with an increase in the director's salary. And then on the general budget side, or general government side, the balance of that is what everybody in town is experiencing. Utility costs. Your fuel oil is going up. Your fuel in your car is going up. Your electricity is going up. And then now we're talking about your taxes going up. So that's where the increases were. I should also note that there are several departments that came in flat in the general fund budget or general government budget. And even they got questioned as to why we couldn't find cuts rather than staying flat. So I think the board worked really hard at trying to make this as painless as possible for as many people as possible. And myself, I'm not super comfortable with the number, but I'm trying to find a balance, as Pat said. I did want to mention a couple things or address a couple things that were brought up because I find them kind of ironic. We talked about the superintendent, his salary and what it was compared to Dr. Longo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I happen to have read the contract, and Mr. Kreller is working more hours than the previous superintendent. So I'm going to assume that when that contract was negotiated, that was taken into account. And also, in order to be the superintendent, there's a different level of education, different level of responsibility and experience requirements before you get to be in that position. So I would expect the superintendent's pay to be slightly elevated compared to a teacher. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look at my notes. And then something I found kind of curious was that pre-pandemic, Jane, you said we had 40% of the students on free lunch. And that's directly related, or studies show that it's related to their test scores, but yet we don't know what it is post-pandemic, and it doesn't really matter. My question is, but we have 40% of the students on free lunch, which means I'm going to guess about 30% of the households, maybe give or take, are in financial crisis, if you will. And then the Board of Education comes to the Board of Finance in the town with a enormous budget increase. That doesn't make any sense to me personally. I would think if you have students that are struggling financially, we would want to look at ways to help the families overall. And I'm not saying I want to see people lose their jobs. I'm just saying that we also have to consider everybody, including those families, who are going to have some tough times ahead. There's people who still haven't recovered or got their job back. or got a job, maybe not the job they had or the pay they had or the benefits they had. For example, my primary job, I have not had a raise since 2019. So, and I know that's the case for many, many people, probably many people on this meeting right now. So I just have an enormous problem with talking about, we're worried about people losing their jobs. And I was the one who brought it up at the meeting a month or so ago when I asked about the teachers or not necessarily the teachers, but the staff, when they negotiate these contracts, do they understand the possible consequences? A town is not a revenue producing entity. We fill our fiscal responsibilities by taxing the citizens. We don't make anything. We don't sell anything. We can't pass on the cost of doing business to anybody but the taxpayers. So to negotiate a contract, and I think that was misconstrued. I'm not saying that you took advantage of the town. I'm saying that you didn't understand what exactly the consequence would be with when things were good. We fix things or whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it. And then now things aren't so good and the town can't afford those raises. So that's what happens. Somebody loses their job. I don't remember who it was that said it. They've had to lay people off. I've had many people in my line of work have lost their jobs during the pandemic and they're not getting them back. So I think my fear is this, that if this were to go through today or tomorrow, as is, that going down the road, there are going to be people in this town who won't be able to meet those obligations. And so we can pass the budget and have the mill rate be whatever it is and say we did a great job. And then in 8-10 months, we can hear from the tax collector how our collections are down and we still have a bigger problem. Because now not only do we not have our collections and we can't pay the bills the town has, but we are going to have some properties that the tax collector is going to have to go do for tax sale. And that's going to increase needs on other sides. Social services needs, assistance, all kinds of things. So I think that the board worked really hard. My feeling was when we came into this public hearing tonight to listen to the people, and believe it or not, it was actually right down the middle. So as far as I'm concerned, I think at this moment, I'll listen to the rest of the board members and see what other people's ideas are. I'm not excited about leaving it where it is, but that might be where it needs to be. So that's all for me for now. Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, Paul. Very well spoken. Anybody else on the board have thoughts, input? Jesse, John, where are you guys?
Sure, Judy, this is Jesse.
Go ahead.
All right. I don't have much prepared really to say on this, but request for 611,000 originally for the school was drastically high, and at keeping it at a rate of 337,000 more than last year is still quite a substantial increase. And a few people spoke about ways that some money could be saved without having anyone have to lose their job. Certainly sounds like something that could be used. We can't say to the Board of Ed how to use the money that's given to them from the town, but certainly they could take the suggestions that have been given. And just it's such a tough time right now with the price of everything, and I think it's certainly important. And I think Paul summed it up great about saying that if so many of our students are on assistance for food from the school, how can we then ask their families to increase the taxes that they're paying? That's all I've got.
Anybody else? Garth? John?
Angie?
I have nothing new
Angie,
to say,
Angie?
just what I've said before.
Hi. Yeah, just a couple of things. I believe that it's really important to get people in politics, politically, to help people that are in need, because there will always be people that are in need, maybe more so because of COVID, maybe not. Theoretically, the unemployment is down really incredibly. So I don't know what that does to the town. But if we could get other ways of helping people in need, and we people that can afford it to pay the taxes, et cetera, I think that's the way to go. So I support the budget that we had from the town and the education to go forward.
So, can you clarify, are you supporting the school, the one that we had in the Citizen, or are you supporting the full?
Oh,
request?
the one that we came up with.
Well, I think during that meeting, didn't we, Angie and I were going for the what the school requested, which was the 5.21, right? But that's not what got passed.
Yeah, but I realized you have to do some budget cutting here and there, and so I am in favor of the newer one that we have to get that going, and hopefully that'll work out.
Okay, the 4.21.
Yeah.
And then the town was 9%. And Region 19 at 1.3, and that was kind of like, we really didn't have the numbers at the time of this meeting, so that might go down a little bit. Okay, anybody else?
Hey, Judy, this is John.
Hi, John.
I have a lot of stuff here. It's going to be random all over the place. My blood is boiling. I'm at a point where I don't know what to believe anymore. We get information to make these decisions and whatnot, and it doesn't match depending on where it comes from. I'm looking at a salary schedule for AEA, and it does not match any of what we've heard earlier tonight. And I'm just absolutely disgusted at this point. I don't even know anymore. What disappoints me the most is that the original budget was 7.64%. Certified salaries are up 6.87, non-certified 5.69, and employee benefits 14.15. Energy is up because diesel's up, but that accounts for about 1% of the total budget. So when I look at this and I see it represented as a status quo budget, this is a budget that is just going to keep the lights on. It's just going to keep the contract satisfied, and it's not going to further education in this town. And I cannot fathom how 7.64% ask can do that, can only do that. It just absolutely baffles me. I look at my taxes and I'm looking at 18% for an increase. I just filled my heating oil tank. That cost me $1,000 for just over 200 gallons. And I do the math on what this is going to cost me for a year. And for me, right now, not even counting the fact that car taxes are going up and business taxes and all the other stuff, it's $300 a month that I'm going to pay extra to keep the house warm and to pay the property tax increase. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's almost a car payment. Now, I understand that budgets have to go up. I'm not one of those people that's, zero across the board. I never want my taxes to go up. People should get raises. This should happen. But how a 7.64% can turn into just a status quo. I'm at a loss. I'm at an absolute loss here. Test scores were mentioned tonight. I follow US News and World Report. And when I bought this property 4 or so years ago, this was a very well-rated district. And I know test scores aren't everything, but it's been trending down for 4 years. And we're at a point now where the elementary side of the school, the rankings, the US News and World Report ranks the 550 some odd elementary schools in the state. And we were certainly above top half, but now they only rank the top 420 out of 550, and we're unranked for elementary. We have problems, and the first step is admitting that we have a problem. And a status quo budget at 7.64% just to keep the lights on isn't going to solve anything for us. And I don't think just extra money is going to solve anything for us. I think we need real changes. Now, when I was in Vernon, right before I left, a couple of years before I left, we fell into this is deja vu for me. We fell into the same situation. We were suddenly ranked as a bottom 30 district in the state. It was something called the Alliance District. It qualified us for all kinds of state involvement and money and all kinds of stuff. But it was a stigma of being ranked so poorly. That in combination with a new superintendent, I can't describe how much of a turnaround that town made in the couple of years after that. And I had run for the Board of Education in that town in the middle of all that, and I was elected there, and I was privileged to spend a few years with them. And I worked with an outstanding superintendent. And I can't say enough for how he was able to turn things around. And I've met with Craig regarding this budget and whatnot. And I left my meeting with him with the same sense of the last superintendent that I worked with in Vernon. I have utmost faith in him that he can make things happen with this budget and help our school, which needs help. We have to admit that we need help. And it's not just dollars. So I have a lot of faith in him and what he's going to do. So this is not a sky is falling situation. I think we're about to turn around. But I'm even struggling at the 4.21, to be perfectly honest, just because everything that's going on. And I look at the town budget and an overall 4.67% increase. But 4.21 of that is Board of Education. The town is up 8.99%. Region 19 is up 1.3%. And yet, even with that, the total only goes up to 4.67. So much of the tax money is going into that school. It's why it's the biggest thing that we talk about at budget season. So I'm not in favor of going up at all. I'm afraid to leave it where it is. And if it doesn't pass, God help us all.
Thank you, John. Who do we have? Hugh. I thought I saw Hugh's hand up, but Christina?
Yes, I just wanted to comment because I think I heard Paul, and maybe I misheard, talk about it was split down the middle, meaning the comments tonight were split down the middle. Is that what you said, Paul?
Yep, that is what I said.
So I was taking notes, and somebody else correct me, but my numbers are that there were 25 people who commented. 5 people commented saying spending was too high, and then 18 commented essentially that they were supporting the school budget as is, or that it should go higher. I don't know how you got split down the middle when I got about 75% supporting the school either as is or higher. But
Because as is was leaving it alone, which would be not raising it. So.
Okay, so that's what you're referring to. Okay, I understand what you're saying. I think we parsed it slightly differently. That's fine.
Smarter than the average banana.
The only thing I want to mention, I hesitate to say this, but the one thing that bothers me anytime test scores come up is that, like, I just don't think that's a good measure of an education. And I realize they are a reality. I wish that they didn't exist. After having children in a school now, I can tell you my kids are being educated. I don't need a test to tell me. I can tell you that the teachers are doing a good job. I don't need a test to tell me. So I understand that people want to use those numbers and they want to use it as maybe as a reason that maybe change has to happen. But I just wanted to speak up that I don't think that not everybody agrees with that point of view, that test scores are not the end all be all of whether a school is successful or not. And they do tend to tell you more about the socioeconomic status of the community than they do about the quality of the education. I don't think I have anything else to say.
So Christina, right now we're discussing about if we're going to leave it the same or if we're going to raise it. We're not talking about what we talked about like for a while. So do you have any input as to where you think you would like it to go?
I got feedback from people that were like, when they saw what was in the Citizen, I did hear from people that were like, whoa, what is going on? How can I support this budget? Or I can't support this budget. But after doing the analysis that I did that I shared earlier in terms of not everyone's taxes are going to go up. 25% of people are going to see their taxes stay flat or go down. And of course, that means 75% of people are going to see their taxes go up. Some it's going to be nominal, some it's going to be more significant. But for me, looking at those numbers, I can get behind this budget as it is proposed. I had one other thought, and then I just lost it.
A little information. The taxes are going up more for lower priced houses. So we're talking about like, say 120,000 to 150,000. They're getting the bigger increases. And also the apartments and around in the area have been going up 65% to 75%. So we're looking at the people that need the money the most of taxing them the most, just to keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Hugh?
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, I was elected to the Board of Finance with a pledge to hold the line on town spending, and the way the reval's hitting people and their taxes is significant enough. And it is unfortunate that all the money going to the school and most of it to the town is for salary for unionized employees. And I don't think a small town like Ashford needs to support unions like that. So I think 4.2 is actually a little high, but I understand how the numbers are coming in, and that's the baseline we have to go with. I'll reluctantly accept and support it, but anything higher than that, I certainly could not support in any way. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So, did I miss anybody? I can't even remember now. I'm getting tired. Okay. So, I guess to make it clearer, how many would like to have it remain at the 4.2 as a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? And we'll say names, I guess.
Judy, I'm sorry, 4.2, are you talking specifically about the school budget only?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, Bill?
Just to be clear, Judy, I think perhaps you should ask for a motion and take a vote on that. And
Make it official.
well, I just make sure it's clear and it's totally understandable by everybody. But I would vote, I would suggest you take a separate motion and vote on the Board of Ed recommendation, the town government side. Unfortunately, I understand EO Smith is meeting as we talk. And what I've heard is they're actually going to cut our budget below what it was to come up in the negative. So we may have a slight savings on that. But I would at least call for a formal motion for the Board of Ed budget and the town side.
Okay. So a motion to keep Ashford School at a 4.21%, which is equivalent to $8,337,427.
I do, Angie DeSanto.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second, guys? You guys can turn your mics on. Is there a second for the 4.21?
This is sticky. I will second that.
Who is this?
Garth, sorry. In a way, it doesn't make sense because we went through and we voted for this, and I voted no, but I learned a lesson years ago in the very same situation. So
All those in favor?
Hi, Angie.
and of course, Garth, because I seconded the motion.
Silence is deafening.
Math
There's a
is
lot to
hard.
think about here.
I don't know. I really don't think this will pass. Oh, and by the way, that example in the Citizen was my own, from my own house. And that's a fact. And I don't have a problem paying for it. I'm worried about everybody else.
So I'm very curious as to why people don't think it will pass when the majority of people that spoke tonight said that they support the school budget at 4.21% or higher.
So the majority that spoke tonight, this happens all the time too. We usually end up with a majority of one side versus the school majority is always higher than the actual residents. I don't know why that is, but it happens. But I can tell you today that somebody had called me and told me that they put my cell phone out there in an email, and people were calling me at work.
Point of order, Madam
Telling-
Chair. Madam Chair, excuse me, I'm sorry. Point of order. Haven't you called for a vote and discussion over?
Who is this?
This is Jeff Silversmith.
It's not your meeting. Out of order.
Sorry. Just following Robert's rules.
So while I hear you and I understand that, there's
Christina, that Jeff is actually right. So
Okay.
We're just going to the vote. Just going to the vote.
it was called for a vote. So people are, I guess, for lack of a better
Tired.
term, calculating and doing math. So I think, I know the silence is terrible, but we need to let that happen.
Who are the voting members tonight at this meeting?
Who is this?
Hugh.
Hugh?
Yeah.
So it's a seated members of the regular members. We have enough regular members, and then we have 2 alternates. So it would be Andy, Garth, myself, John, Paul, and Jesse.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, it's hard for me to pay attention to everybody. There's a lot of people.
In favor, and then you can go back.
No. Judy, it's Paul. I'm going to vote yes for the motion to move it to the Board of Selectmen for the 8,337,427 for the Board of Ed.
Okay, thank you.
This is John. I'm going to vote yes too. I don't know.
This is Jesse. I'll also vote yes.
I'm sorry, I still think it's high. I vote no. Okay. Next item. We have a motion for the general government to go for the 9% at 3,841,715.
Are we doing discussion on this one or are we just gonna vote?
You need a motion and a second before you can
You
do
need
your
a
discussion.
motion.
I'm sorry, Judy.
No, that's okay. I'm slow because I'm getting tired.
How many, Garth, I have a question. Nope, never mind, withdrawn.
Never heard you. Just kidding. Do we have a motion for the general government, a 9% increase at 3,841,750? Bill,
Judy, not to be picky, but it's an 8.99% increase
oh, geez.
proposed.
Proposed, all right. Well, we want to make sure we have it accurate, right?
Absolutely.
Do we have a motion?
Judy, it's Paul. I'll make the motion for the general fund budget, the general government budget, 3,841,715.
Do I have a second?
Sure, this is Jesse. I'll second that.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jesse. All those in favor?
Judy, can we have some
Yeah,
discussion before we call for
Sure.
the vote?
Yep, go ahead.
I know Christina wanted to say something, so.
Go ahead, Christina.
Well, I just want to say that I think it's really unfortunate that there was almost no commentary from the public about the general government budget. I think it deserves as much attention as the school budget. I realize it's not as big, but I think there are just as many questions to be asked about the general government budget as the school budget. And I know this has been stated, but I want to state it again that, we're looking at, there's talk of cutting staff on the school side, which I don't believe is necessary with a 4.21% increase. However, it's out there. And yet on the general government side, we're talking about adding staff, and yet there was no commentary about that during the public hearing. And I just think, I wish that wasn't the case, and I wish that people paid as much attention on the general government side as they did on the school side. I don't think I have anything else to say other than that.
Anybody else?
It's an interesting point Christina makes. I'm more pessimistic because of my years of experience in two towns with this, but the reality to me is this: the chief complaint we got was nobody knew what was in the budget, and yet how many people turned out in favor of budgets that apparently we didn't tell them what was in it? They come out because the parents don't want cuts to school without having necessarily the document in front of them to know where that money is spent. But on the town side, no one cares. They don't want it to go up, but they don't care.
Yeah, well, also, John, this is Paul. I think some of that too, though, could be that the town side, because it's not as big of a chunk of the budget, and it also, I think, reflects. I will give the townspeople credit in the fact that maybe they did do their research, and the school budget is what is their concern because it's such a big number. The town generally in years past has operated very slimly. So I think maybe the town has earned the respect of the citizens to the point that if there's a addition of a staff, they might see that as it's a necessary thing, even if it means a tax increase or an increase in the budget. And also to that effect, that Christina's point, there was some questions asked of the people whose budgets had those additions, but the public didn't bring it up at the public hearing. You're right. And that's unfortunate that people don't attend the meetings and make comments or come to the public hearing and make comments. Yeah, so.
Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, okay. I think too, it's important to note, well, yes, I understand that the chunk of change for the general government at about 3.8 million is, less than half of the school budget of 8.3 million. But the amount being added in this budget, we're adding, in terms of dollars, 317, rounding up, dollars to the general government budget. We're adding $337,000 to the school budget. That's pretty comparable, and I feel like that's maybe more comparable than it's been in many years. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I hear the narrative a lot. Well, the school gets everything and the town gets nothing. And I think that hopefully that narrative will change if this budget gets passed at referendum, because this is an example where both sides are getting roughly the same amount in terms of dollars.
Judy, can I say something to that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, while that is correct on paper, the one thing that's not, you didn't account for is that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance had a long discussion 2 weeks ago regarding contingency funding due to the current economic crisis. So there's some funds in the budget, in the general fund budget, to cover contingencies that normally would not have been put in there on a normal budget year. And I don't have the breakdown is in here, but I believe it was
I think it was 50, but maybe Bill's gonna say.
50.
Excuse me, Christina. Paul's.
So it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $80,000 is contingency funding. And that, unfortunately, again, that's one of those things that I think many members of the Board of Finance had a tough time with. But at the same time, we understand that if we don't have that in place, we could be literally going back to the town and having to dig into the unassigned fund balance or having some other issues. So that's one of those things that, you're right, on paper it looks that way. And to Mr. Silversmith and Mr. Funk's point, that probably could have been pointed out somewhere at some point, but again, they could have attended the meetings as well. So thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One, I agree that discussion is healthy. I'm a little disappointed there wasn't more questions asked of the Board of Selectmen because I think a knowledgeable public feels more comfortable with their vote. My board certainly was not overjoyed bringing forward initially a 10-point increase budget. I think that we offered ourselves and up to the Board of Finance for any scrutiny that you may have had. And I like to think that we answered that with transparency. I wish everybody could participate, but obviously people don't have the time to do that. There are 3 items in the contingency right now. One of them I'm going to recommend that we move into the Board of Selectmen's budget. But the 3 elements are $35,000 for union negotiations, $50,000 for fuels, and approximately $57,000 in change for a new position. And that new position, I think, probably should not be in that contingency fund, but should be moved elsewhere. Again, the Board of Selectmen deliberated on this. We also brought forward and discussed with the Board of Finance, perhaps making that a part-time position instead of 35 hours, going below 30. But we sincerely felt in the best interest of the town, again, to be perfectly frank with you, we needed that full-time position. We've got major offices, departments in this town, and this isn't something new, that are being directed by one individual. And the field is just not deep enough. We need to bolster that. It's not something we were tickled to death to do. It was talked about by the Board of Selectmen a year and a half ago, and again 6 months ago. And we determined that the best time to do that would be during the budget process, and that's what we've done. You know, as far as the questioning, I think the general public is not aware of a couple of things that may not mean a lot to you. You may even have some board members that aren't familiar with it. But there are certain things that are within the selectmen's budget that are directly attributable to the town. One of them is the bus that we buy every year. Now, granted, this year we're putting that into ARPA funds because we think it's a justified cost under government services. Any bond issues that the school may have, and while they're low right now, they're in the general government side of it. Years ago, I remember being presented a bill or a payment by the Board of Ed for close to $10,000 for snow plowing. And the Board of Selectmen, and for whatever reasons, by the Board of Ed, for whatever reasons, we felt the Board of Ed shouldn't be paying for snow removal. We've picked that up ever since, and we do that. That's in our Public Works Department budget. Those are things that many, many other towns attribute directly to the Board of Ed. This town over the years, we support education. We want to do all we can within our means. And I think we do that. But just, and I'm sorry if I'm on my soapbox here, but I agree with Christina, it's a shame we don't have more input from the public and questions on all varieties of ours. I've lost count of how many special meetings the Board of Selectmen have had and the Board of Finance have had deliberating. And it was obvious by when you guys were making the votes today, how difficult it was to come to the conclusions that we've all been. I'll step down from the soapbox, but discussion is healthy.
I have a point, Judy. Angie
Is that
DeSanto.
Angie?
Yeah, I
Angie.
just wanted to say, you know, Bill and other people, when I wasn't involved with, you know, politics within Ashford, not politics, but getting involved with Ashford and knowing what's going on. My belief in the democratic system is I elect people that are going to represent me. I look at what they're doing and then I say, I'm going to vote for them. And then they do the job, you know, because we're all inundated with, you know, what we have to do, maintaining families and you know, our responsibilities with employment and all that. So that's another way to look at it, that we're appreciating you guys, that you do the job. You put all that effort into it. And I don't have to know the details. And there are a lot of people like that, really. I was at Pickle today outside. Thank you very much. It's going to be a wonderful pickleball court soon. Anyway, and they were talking about, oh, you know, the assessment went up. And I just explained things to them. They had no idea. One of them said, oh, I'll wait to get my bill and then I'll know what I'm paying. And then I said, but that's after the budget, which you're going to vote yes for, right? But anyway, people are into their own things and they don't realize it. And I think that they think you guys are doing a good job, and I do too.
Thank you.
Any more comments before we vote? Questions? Okay, so we had a motion on the table already for the general government at 8.99%, 3,841,000 $8,715. Paul motion, Jesse second. All those in favor?
Aye, Angie.
Paul, I.
Jesse, I.
I'll be consistent, no.
John, I.
Four ayes, one nay. Motion passes.
Garth didn't vote.
I didn't
Oh,
vote.
sorry.
I was,
Sorry, Garth, I apologize.
that's all right. It's not the first time I've been neglected.
Oh my gosh, oh,
It's like a pattern of that.
no, I'm sorry.
No, not with you. I will vote yes.
Okay.
Lukewarm, yes.
So we have 5 yeas, 1 nay. Motion passes. Did I get everybody? Angie, Paul, Jesse, John, Garth, me. Yep. Okay. So I'm not sure what to do with E.O. Smith until we have the actual figures. If we should.
So I was trying to look it up and I can't find any reference. Does the board normally vote to send Region 19? They must, because it has to go to the meeting. Go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
Bill?
Well, I would think that you could, in anticipation of the vote, support the E.O. Smith budget as presented and to allow the Board of Selectmen to tweak it to verify whatever motion they make tonight at their meeting. I mean, I heard $8,000, but I don't think we ought to guess at a figure until we can confirm their motion. And then we'll have Cheryl make the appropriate adjustments with your authorization.
And we also need a motion on the capital budget.
Correct. And we're going to need a motion to ask the Board of Selectmen to petition to a town meeting with a referendum.
So how do we make that motion correctly for Region 19? Because we can't use the figures. Are we going to use the figures that we have currently, or?
Well, I think Catherine's been down this road before. She may be able to add something, but I believe you can authorize a number at hand with the caveat that the Board of Selectmen will be able to adjust if that changes from the E.O. Smith by tomorrow morning. Only if it goes down. If it goes up appreciable, then we may have a problem.
Okay.
So
Catherine, do you have some verbiage that you would approach that with?
In the past, we've had somebody at the Region 19 meeting who called in to let us know what the number was. But if you, I agree that if you were to make a motion, and you should just look back at the previous budget season as to what the motion is. You could indicate that it's an amount that the Board of Selectmen could tweak, adjust appropriately, whatever it comes out of tonight's meeting.
Judy, you have the figure. I would have the motion. I would suggest the motion be made for the figure not to exceed, and then you can state the number. And if it's lower than that, it authorize the town to adjust that.
Right.
Judy, so first off, I actually had somebody trying to pay attention to that Region 19 meeting, and the feed was horrendous at best. So I can tell you that whatever budget they passed or put forth passed, but I have not been able to get the actual number. Much like us, I don't think the feed is gonna, or the video is gonna come out until tomorrow. So, and then second to that, I will make the motion that we approve the $3,558,470 for Region 19's budget, not to exceed that amount. And if it were to come in lower, allow the Board of Selectmen to adjust that appropriately.
That
Is
has to.
Judy?
Yes. Cheryl.
I'm trying to get somebody to call the superintendent, E.O. Smith.
Okay.
Perhaps if we could move on to the capital improvement motion, and we can buy ourselves a couple of minutes here, we'll have a specific figure for you, hopefully. We're gonna
Right,
try
with that
hard
in
on
mind, I'll withdraw the motion.
Hold on, Hey, Judy.
Who's this one?
I'm sorry, Judy. I should know better. Judy at Scarth, can you see Christina for me? I have a work thing.
You have to work? Okay, so
Yeah.
unseat Garth, Christina's seated.
Thank you very much.
Yep. I don't know if you can do that, Bill, in the middle of a voting, but.
You haven't taken the vote, so you can withdraw the
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
So you can move on to the capital budget while we're waiting for the Region 19 figure. And when you make the Region 19 motion, you need to say the whole amount of the budget and then Ashford's share, of which Ashford's share is, and then the Ashford amount.
Okay, so the whole amount, then Ashford share, and then the amount, okay.
Right.
Let's see. I'm sorry, I don't know where I put my.
So do you want a motion for the capital improvement budget, Judy?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know where I put my,
I have, I'll make a motion for the capital improvement budget of $1,001,455.
This is Jesse Burnham. I'll second that.
any discussion? Any discussion?
I just think it's probably worth stating for the record that this doesn't impact people's taxes, right? And it's covered by, is it all state grants, these projects?
It's combined with several grants to pay for it, as well as partially with the capital non-reoccurring funds.
Okay.
And this year we're taking funds from the Board of Ed non-lapsing also.
That's for the oil tank. The 270,000 of those monies are just for the oil tank.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye, Angie DeSanto.
Jesse Burnham, aye.
John, I.
Christina Davis, I.
Paul Vogel, aye.
Judy Austin, aye.
Three.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so back to what were we doing? Region 19.
We're still working on getting those figures for you. Judy, while we're waiting for that, perhaps you can entertain a motion that the Board of Finance is requesting. We've called a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen tomorrow for 11. So I think a motion is appropriate from the Board of Finance requesting that the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting to be adjourned to referendum under the statutory requirements.
Yeah, Bill, I was just wondering if we have to have all the other stuff voted through first.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable that way. I'm just trying to buy some time.
I know, I'm trying to see if, find the link, but
Yeah, the source I'm working with is running into the same problem you are. Judy, perhaps you could call a 5-minute recess for a pause for the cause or something.
I could use a bathroom break. I don't know about anybody else.
Okay, a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
that was probably more than most of us needed to know.
It's not that inappropriate. I was just drinking a lot of water. That's all. Come on.
This is, Madam Chair, this is Catherine. I have someone who's going to give us the figures. I'm just getting them from her now.
Thank you.
Judy, I'm advised there's no changes.
Okay, so we're keeping it the same.
Same amount. since
No,
we
it is,
have-
it's, bear with me, please. I have someone who was at the meeting, who is one of our representatives. And so she gave me the figures. She's in the parking lot right now and gave me the figures as to what they amended it to tonight. So Bill, did you talk to somebody else?
I had somebody that I believe was talking with the superintendent.
Okay,
that-
so
that said there were no changes.
this is the intro, there were changes. They were made tonight. So the total for EO Smith is 22,863,429. That number again is 22,863,429.
So it went up?
Hey, bear with me. The Ashford's portion is 3,502,539. That's 3,502,539, which went from a 1.3% increase to a negative 0.023%.
For that total, for that total
Negative
to be accurate,
0.03. Bear with me. Okay. Yeah, what was the
That was
question?
worth waiting for.
for
That's
the,
what I thought.
for that total to be accurate, the other towns would have had to have gone up.
So let me
What-
ask the question. Did the other towns go up?
And that the superintendent, I'm Janice Chamberlain, and I'm on the Region 19 school board, and I'm also on the finance committee. And so the superintendent presented the budget. Sharon Corner presented her budget, and we asked her to go back and make a decrease to the budget that was presented. So the original figures that you all had was the original superintendent's budget. Tonight, we approved a decrease, okay, which decreased the budget to the actual change I gave to, that was that 22 million number that Catherine gave you. And then the specific change to Ashford put us into a negative 0.03% with the reduction, okay? Now, with Mansfield and Wellington, their percentages also were reduced because the overall budget number that the superintendent had originally proposed was also reduced. The total budget was also reduced. We went from a 4.4% increase overall to like 2.73. So it went down. The overall budget went down. So every single town received a slight decrease. Does that make sense?
A 2.73% increase would have brought the adjusted pro forma budget to 19,569,418.
No, what she's saying is, if I understand correctly,
that was for the total regional. So, I mean, this is really difficult. I can give you the specific numbers.
well, you've given us the number that they came up with for a budget, total budget, and you've given us Ashford's portion.
Budget itself.
Yeah.
All three towns plus you have to remember that includes our capital budget as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that might be the difference.
So that the total amount, I have to go back to my.
That's okay.
19,569,418 is the total E.O. Smith budget.
And the additional must be the capital.
19,569,418. Our
418
portion is 3,592,539.
That's correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, so one more time, that was 3,592,539.
3502.
No.
3502,539.
It's 02. That's right.
For us, a change from what it was, the original proposal was a 1.3% increase for Ashford. It's now a negative 0.03%.
Yeah.
You have a-
5,302,539.
You have a $3 million capital budget.
Yeah, before I let Janice off the phone, Madam Chair, it appears that Craig might have a question.
I have a question.
Excuse me.
That's Valerie.
I didn't hear who has a question.
I do.
Craig?
I do.
And so does Craig.
Valerie.
I would like those figures again because everybody was talking over and I've got a 22,863,429 and then I have a 19,569,418 and the figures need to be repeated with one person speaking, please.
Okay, let me do a quick check again here.
Excuse me 1 minute. Craig, do you have something you'd like to add?
Yes, please, Madam Chair. Catherine's figures were correct. I just received the actual slide on which the vote was made. If you'll let me share the screen. The total budget was 19,569,418, of which the Ashford portion is exactly what Catherine said, 3,502,539. That's a net change of 8,933, which is a reduction to 0.03. So that's accurate. If you want me to share it, I'll put the actual form on the screen.
If I could clarify for Cheryl, that 22,863 figure apparently had the capital in it. So thank you for clarifying that.
That's correct.
Valerie, I will email the figures to you.
Okay.
Do we need Janice anymore?
No, thank you, Janice.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Yes,
Janice.
thank you so much. Thanks. Okay, you take care. Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, that. So I need a motion. Need a motion for the total of a 19,569,418 regional 19 budget with the portion of Ashford's 3,502,539.
Judy, this is Paul. So moved.
This is Angie, second.
Can we discuss real quick?
Sure.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So the Region 19 budget, so 21-22 Region 19 budget was 3,511,472. Now we're going to come in at 3,502,539. So that's actually a decrease of 0.254%. Do I have that right?
0.03.
Okay, so you're you rounding up, that's fine. And so that's actually gonna change the mill rate in a good way. Very small, but it's gonna change it.
She's good.
There's also,
Is that right?
There's also a slight decrease in the grand list because of Board of Assessment appeals, so we'll probably even out.
Oh. So when do we know that?
We know it already.
So what is the grand list number then, if we know it?
Cheryl,
Total-
did Karen give you that?
Yeah, the total grand list figure after Board of Assessment appeals is 365,691,095.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more conversation? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye, Angie.
Paul, aye.
Jesse Burnham, aye.
Christina
Aye.
Davis, aye.
There were two people, Christina and who else? John, was that you?
Yes, is Christina seated?
Yes, Garth went to work.
Perfect.
Okay. They both said aye at the same time. I couldn't tell if it was really an aye or if it was, never mind. Judy, aye. Okay. Now we need a motion to request to the Board of Selectmen for an annual town meeting referendum date.
To set a
date.
town meeting and a referendum date. We're going to do that tomorrow at 11.
So do we motion for your tomorrow at 11? Or just motion to set the date or?
I would just say a motion to request the Board of Selectmen to set the appropriate dates for a town meeting to be adjourned to referendum.
All right, I'll try it again. I'll make a motion to request the Board of Selectmen meet to set the town meeting to adjourn the referendum.
Second, Angie.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Jesse
Aye,
Burnham,
Angie.
aye.
Paul Varga,
Christina Davis, aye.
Judy, aye. Excuse me, Judy, aye. John, are you still out there? Think we lost him.
No, I'm here. I don't know why that didn't work, but yes, I voted yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, guys, that was rough. Angie, we're coming to your favorite time of the night.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Christina, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you guys so much
Thank
for your
you.
patience while
Good
we
night, folks.
fumble
Thank
through
you
the
for all your
steps.
work. Good job.
Bye.